Hello, everybody. Road Warrior 627 here, and welcome back to another preview here on my channel. And this will be the first of two videos we're going to do this meet at Saratoga. Of course, Belmont's over. I had a lot of content out for that because it's my favorite meet, the Belmont Spring Summer meet. That's in the rearview mirror. And now we're up at Saratoga, so we're going to have this video for you talking about the Jim Dandy card. I was going to do a video for the Whitney card. I can't do that. Next week is just too busy. But I'll be back later in August for a video with the Travers Day card. But before we get into the Saratoga card here on Saturday, July the 30th, we need to address the elephant in the room. And that is that it's official. No Belmont full meet. Of course, I'm pissed. I'm going to put it this way. I was teasing that I couldn't make the one-turn route video I wanted to make without a certain announcement. Well, that's what the certain announcement was. And now I'm going to rip into them. So Monday morning, early in the morning, is when I'm going to have that episode of One Turn Route out. I'm going to record it over the weekend. And it's instead, I was going to originally have it as the racetracks versus the fans, horse racing's greatest schism. Well, I decided to shift it right to all about Belmont and make it about NYRA tarnishing Belmont Park's great legacy. So that's what I'm going to do for One Turn Route Episode 8. And I'll have about a 20 to 25 minute discussion about that. But we got to move on, because if I get obsessed with that, I'm just going to get angry and punch the monitor that's in front of me. So we're going to talk about these 11 races on Saturday, and I'm going to welcome today's guest. He's pretty much a regular now, Jack Sargent of Racing Rundown. How you doing, Jack?
I'm very much in the same boat as you when it comes to the news that we had today. Very much was expected, but just because we expected an announcement to come doesn't make it any less fun when that announcement does come down.
Yeah, that's totally right. And it's not like they did a great job with the stake schedule either, of course. Did you want to make any comments on that? I'll let you if you want.
Yeah, I mean, I guess since you kind of talked about it, I'm sure you'll get more into it, but I thought it was very odd the way that the calendar ended up playing out for the stakes races. You had the Kelso, which is at Belmont Park, is run as a one-turn mile on the dirt course there, and that is a de facto Breeders' Cup dirt mile prep. And the Breeders' Cup dirt mile, very controversial race. My biggest issue with it is that there's barely any races to actually prep into it. There's the at Churchill and the Kelso at Belmont. Well, the Kelso at Belmont has been moved it's run in late September, the same weekend as the Pennsylvania Derby usually. It was moved to October 29th, which is coinciding with the Bold Ruler, which is a Grade 3 run at Belmont. It's run at 7 furlongs on the last weekend of October. All those two races are on the same day. So what that does is that forces the Bold Ruler to be cut to 6 furlongs. They did do that, but it also eliminates the Kelso as a Breeders' Cup prep, which doesn't make any sense to me. And the counter, or the consequence of that, is the Vosburg has been lengthened to 7 furlongs, and it kind of functions as both a final prep for the sprint and a final prep for the dirt mile. But the dirt mile isn't a sprint race, especially since it's not at Churchill Downs this year. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to have the Vosburg be 7 furlongs and have that be the final prep in for horses that are going to do the dirt mile, when the dirt mile has really the past few years turned into this prep for, or this, for lack of a better term, the preview for top 4-year-olds. That's what we've seen, or I can't say every time 4-year-olds, but top horses for the following year. So Life is Good in 2021 wins that top level horse this year. 2020, it's Nick's Go. 2019, it's, who the hell won it? Well, 2019 was the outlier, but 2016, you had Gunrunner running it. 2017, you had Accelerate running it. So you have all these horses that go on to have Eclipse champion seasons that run in the dirt mile the year prior to that. And it's really become that's really what the dirt mile has kind of turned into. And when you subtract a prep, now the Kelso wasn't a perfect prep, but at least it was at the distance. So when you subtract that, it really makes absolutely no sense. So I doubt we're going to get an explanation as to why of that, but the way that the calendar was planned out for this stake schedule makes absolutely no sense to begin with. And I said to Andrew, I don't know what's worse, the decision to move to Aqueduct, or how screwed up the stake schedule has now become. So I'm sure you'll get into it a little bit more, and I know you're not as into the Breeders' Cup as I am, but that was the way that I noticed, because it really kind of messes up the whole schedule. And now post Saratoga, they don't even have a stakes race at a mile there, but post August, there is one prep in the country at a mile for the Breeders' Cup, and it's the ACAC at Churchill. So NYRA is also kind of, in a way, ceding more ground to Churchill Downs, which Churchill Downs doesn't need to be given any more ground than they've already taken. But that's just beside the point. That's my way too long rant on that, because I thought that was my biggest takeaway is what the hell is up with the stakes schedule.
Wow, that was very comprehensive, Jack, and I think you added more than when we talked before this started, but okay, and I agree with everything you said. I will point out one good thing. It looks like the 2023 spring summer meet next year will be at Belmont in its entirety, so that will not be ruined. All right, enough about my favorite place on earth, then moving on to either my second or third favorite track, that's Saratoga. First race on Saturday at 105 as usual. This is a maiden special weight, big purse, as almost all of them are up here. I'm going to do something very stupid and just take a very small shot with the one horse with a very nice name, especially for an astronomy fan like me, that being Space. But of course, I'm not picking the horse because of the name. I'm picking the horse because of Mr. Billy Mott. And that's pretty much it. You can see the closer look here has some good things to say about this horse as far as the breeding. So you can see Mott, 12% 2-year-old firsters in dirt sprints. A lot of people don't think of him that way, but he's got some decent numbers there at least. And another reason, of course, I went with this horse is the value. There's not a lot of value in this race. So I'm just going to take a very, very small shot with this horse. Not much in here.
Went to the one Space, and they're pretty much for the same reason. Not necessarily the value point of view, but just because Belmont and this horse is a firster. There's a lot of firsters in this race, but I thought the horse was intriguing. I did like the breeding myself, and then also just because Mott with the first time, the percentages, as you mentioned, are pretty good. So I'm also on the one Space in this race.
Okay, let's hope we start out the Saturday card with a bang. Going to take a lot of horses not running as well as they're touted on the morning line or being talked about on the backstretch, whatever it may be. The second race is another maiden special, 105 mile 16th on the inner, and right away we have reached my race of the day. This is the most important race. It's the one I'm going to have the most amount of money going through, and it's pretty much the only race on Saturday where I'm going to bet more than my usual base bets. And I'm going to be going with, of course, Christoph and Chad. And I'm going to mainly try to get Christoph home in here with his first-time starter. Why do I keep picking Chad and Christoph first-time starters? Well, very simple. They keep winning for me. They're a very large reason why I'm having such a profitable year. They're two of my favorite trainers. You guys all know that. Big thing about this horse. Dylan Davis owns this horse. Dylan Davis owns this horse. Dylan Davis is riding this horse, and I much prefer him over Joel Rosario, who's riding this horse for Mark Casse right next door, because this is a mile and a 16th on the inner. I don't like how Rosario takes too far back in these inner turf races, or pretty much in a bunch of turf races. I'd rather have Dylan, who's more aggressive. I'm a much bigger fan of his in this kind of situation. The other horse, of course, is first-time starter for Chad Brown. You got Flavien Prat. I'm very happy to have him on board as well. He should sit a good trip with this horse. Peter, did I say Klarovich? No, Peter Brandt, even better. I'd rather it be Peter Brandt. So, just two horses. I'm not going to play anybody else unless I decide to throw in Pletcher, just because it's IRAT and the IRAT-Chad connection, but I really don't see about doing anything else here. This has to be a slammed 4-6 box in my book.
I'm also going to box two horses in this race, and I'm using the same horse as Andrew's using, American Hustle on top. I do think American Pharaoh does fall more towards the turf side of things, and American Hustle obviously well-bred. And then Dylan riding for Christoph, as I've been seeing through how Andrew has been producing with Christoph firsters a lot of times with Dylan Davis aboard. It has been very profitable. So that's the horse that I'm going on top here. But I'm going to go to a horse that I looked at initially, didn't want, but then I took another look at the chart and I overlooked something significantly with this race. And that's the number 8 for Mike Maker in this spot. This horse is a son of Kingman out of a Rail Link mare. And for those folks who may not know, Rail Link was a horse who was a Group 1 winner in Europe back in the mid-2000s. He won the Grand Prix de Paris, which is a 1.5-mile race at Paris Longchamp. And so that's distance on both sides, obviously being by Kingman, who has produced plenty of horses going longer distances. And this horse started in his career debut in a 6-furlong turf race at Belmont for 2-year-olds. And the 2 winners of that race merry-go-rounded it. Jose Ortiz was handed the lead on a horse named Oxymore. He won by 6.5 lengths in that spot. The runner-up was second the entire way. And this horse was closing toward the end of that race, but he had no chance because the lead was handed to these 2 horses. And I'm going to try this horse second time out, getting significantly longer than 6 furlongs in this spot. We'll see what happens. Probably will need even longer from this going forward, but I'll see. Maybe I can get him for second in this spot. So I'm going to play him with the 4 in this spot. So a nice little 4-8 exacta in this race, but with the 4 on top.
That seems like a very good idea, Jack, and I guess I overlooked that horse a little bit. I took a peek now, and I can't throw a bunch of horses in. I definitely see where you're coming at with the breeding. I also think that Saez this time, in a longer race, will have this horse forwardly positioned, which will be to a great advantage on the inner turf at Saratoga. Very, very important. I cannot stress it enough. A lot of these jockeys just don't understand how important that is. Saez does understand. You see it time and time again. In fact, Jack made a little TikTok about that earlier this year. It's funny enough. And maybe he will wire the field at 9-1. We'll see. Moving on to the third race, we've got an allowance over the main track once around the Saratoga Oval. And this is not the kind of a race I love to bet, but I came up with a couple of horses here that I'm going to use. The first one I'm going to use is the 5 Misbehave for Todd Pletcher. I think you're getting a very good price on a Todd Pletcher horse here, and I like that last race coming from behind. I know it was a fast pace, but I still think that getting the price on him is important, and I expect improvement. Pletcher is doing just fine to start the meet here. Picks up Santana, or keeps Santana, I should say, who was riding this horse at Churchill and will continue to ride this horse at Saratoga. I like that as well. Then I'm also going to use the 8 Endowed because it's Christophe Clement, and that's it. Period. Horse is also pretty good, too.
And I'm taking the 8 Endowed in this race for that exact reason. It's Christophe. Irad has been riding very good at Saratoga to start off the meet. There's no reason to, no reason to explain that further. And last couple of races were pretty strong efforts for the horse. So I'm going to bite the chalk in here because I do think this horse is going to be favored. I am very notoriously bad at predicting how markets are going to go in races, but 3-1 right now. If I get something close to that, I don't know that I'll get something close to that, but I'm hoping that it stays, reasonably close to that. Maybe we can get a nice winner with this horse.
I just have one thing in my notes that I skipped over, and I want to point this out, and I should have pointed it out when I was talking about the 5. The 5 typically comes from a little bit further off the pace, except for that June 5th race at Churchill. I think that can work to his advantage. I really don't like horses trying to go wire to wire with normal paces right now at Saratoga. They need a really insanely slow pace, or they need to get a lot of separation to get brave. I don't like kind of the average front runners at the moment. And Endowed is a horse who in the last 2 starts has been very close. I think that might hurt him a little bit the way the track's playing, but you can see the numbers say that he should be there regardless. That's just another reason though why I want to throw in the 5 there. I think he can make one nice run from further back on a track that's been helping that sort of move. Moving on to race 4, so far 2 of the 3 races we've talked about. I'm just dabbling in, and this race is another one of those, so make it 3 for 4. Just gonna use a little 2 in here. Lady Firefoot, of course, the first time starter for Pat Reynolds. Why? Well, first of all, Pat Reynolds is having himself a pretty nice year. And second of all, this horse has nice works and picks up Castellano, who for some reason has been riding like it's 2015, 2016 again, almost like he found the fountain of youth. He gave a very good ride earlier today that I was impressed by. He's given a few good rides, so I'm going to take Lady Firefoot with Castellano. He seems to really understand how much being aggressive is important, kind of like Saez, but Castellano's really found it at Belmont and now at Saratoga. He just won one of these 5.5 furlong turf sprints earlier today, doing the same thing. I expect this horse with a clean break to be up there and be fighting to the finish.
And I'm going to go with the morning line favorite right now in this race, and that is the 8 for Mike Maker. I'm kind of taking a page out of Andrew's book, playing the my guys angle. Mike Maker is one of my guys. I like to take Mike Maker, especially in these kind of races. This horse probably is going to get played a lot, and I'm not really super enthusiastic about it. But again, Maker's one of my guys. I didn't like the longer Maker in this race, and this horse is dropping from maiden special weight down to maiden claiming 40, and then also cutting back from 7 to 5.5. And it looked like the 7 furlongs in this race really did get to this horse toward the end, where he finished 4th in there, and I should say she finished 4th in there. Correction myself there, and not 4th, 7th. So I'm wrong on 2 fronts in this spot, but cutting back to 5.5 in this spot. And Andrew has mentioned that Saez has been one of the guys who is good at picking out the right spot at Saratoga, especially when races are handed to him. And this horse was second in the early going of the last race with Dylan Davis up, but Luis Saez at Saratoga on the front end is usually a very good prospect, and so we're going to play that. Again, probably another horse is going to get a good amount of play, but Mike Maker usually produces in these kind of spots, so I'm going to take the chance with that.
I think that's very logical, Jack, and maybe I could throw the exact in here. The one reason I can't pick him, he's 0 for 10. I just can't pick 0 for 10 horses. But maybe today will finally be or Saturday will be the day he finally gets his picture taken. Okay, everybody, so let's move on to the 5th race, $100,000 big purse for these horses. Optional claiming price is $45,000. And I'm going to be zeroing in on a few horses in here that have been kind of running against each other for a while. The first one is Admonson for Horatio De Paz. Been running good races. Lost to Bronx Bomber, who I'm also going to include in here. Bronx Bomber is the 5 for Linda Rice. Going to use him as well. And then I'm also going to use 2 horses down here, Max Marauder and Big Engine. Now, I don't know if I'm going to play the triple, but I'm probably at least going to play the exacta with all of them and the super. See if I spend the extra $12. They just seem to try a lot and run against each other all the time. Of them, I actually prefer Max Marauder because I feel like Rudy kind of has a good idea of what his horses can do. And the fact that he's running him in the same race as Big Engine, and Big Engine kind of beat him handily last time, that gives me good confidence in him. I also won money on him when he finished second to Listen to Your Heart. So I came into this race with hopefully just sticking to 2 horses. I can't really do that at this point in time. The other option, of course, is just don't bet the race. But if I bet the race, I'm going to have to play 4, 5, 8, and 9.
And I'm going to go to something that isn't necessarily the most successful thing for me, but that's going back to the well. Now, I can't say that I picked this horse in any race, but I have kind of in my mind thought that in the past couple of races, this horse could maybe give some kind of an impression, and that's the one Bank on Shea in here. And I might be reaching to try to find some form that may not be there anymore, but I'm going to go back to February with this horse. He won the Pelican Stakes at Tampa, and that was a start in which he won over Baby Yoda, who came back to run another massive race at Saratoga. I don't need to get into Baby Yoda in terms of his ability to win races and stuff like that, whatever. Bank on Shea subsequently ran in the Carter after that race. That was never going to go well, obviously, with Speaker's Corner and other graded stakes caliber horses in there. Went back in the affirmed success at Belmont, stakes level horses that were clearly better than him. Also another spot that wasn't really going to go too well for him. Last time out, going 6 at Belmont in an allowance race. He wasn't beaten by all that much in there. The field was relatively compact toward the end. Finished 6th, although beaten less than 2 lengths in that spot. And he's dropping from allowance company into this optional claim. He is in for the claim in here, which might be a knock against him in here. But I think this is a slight drop in class for him. Maybe you can look at it and say, okay, well, if they're attaching the tag to this horse, then that means they don't have a lot of confidence in him. And yeah, that is the point against Bank on Shea. But Bank on Shea does have form in the past that maybe could win this race. And I'm going to take the chance with him in this spot. I don't think it's a great look in here, but I don't love anyone else in here. The other thing is he's 9-2 right now. He might be a suspect to be a wise guy horse that everybody catches on to, and he takes a ton of money in this spot. So hopefully that doesn't happen, and hopefully he can run back to the form that he had earlier on this year. But we'll see what happens. I'm going to try it out with him in this spot.
I have to say, Jack, I don't think he's going to take that much money just because it's it's service, and you've got other guys in here like Rudy might take money. The two of the horses that I was interested in, Asmussen always takes money at Saratoga, or at least he seems to. So I think you will get 9-2, and I think you actually might get higher on him. So I don't think that's a bad idea. I thought he should have ran. I thought he had a good setup that he kind of should have won that last race, but I don't think it's a bad idea if you expect him to run another good one. Sixth race is a pretty important race for me. Probably the second most important race of the day. We've got another mile in the 16th race on the inner. This time it's a high-priced allowance race. I'm going to be on 1, 3, 10 in here, boxing them. I'm going to use the 10 on top mainly, but also a little bit of 3 on top. But the first one I got to talk about is Marvelous Maud for Chad Brown, the shorter of the Chad Brown prices. This horse seems to come up, getting the money every time. Pretty honest effort. Not much to say. This horse, just good. It's very good. Finest Work, number 3. 2 straight wins for George Weaver. Must say, we are still praying for George Weaver's wife, Cindy. We hope she comes out of that coma very soon. If she hasn't already, I'm not exactly sure. But we're very much praying for her after her accident that involved a horse that I really fell in love with earlier this year. Very, very hard. Horse racing is a very tough game. So we're praying for her. I like that horse in here. And then number 10, Dream of Change, the longer price Chad Brown. We're going to use, I like this one, second off the race, second off a little bit of a break from April to July. You had over 2 months there coming from Monmouth. Chad this year, you could tell that he's actually been trying to run well at Monmouth. A little bit concerning that the horse didn't get there, but it's also Monmouth, and the fact the horse didn't get there may not be that surprising. You get another chance this time at Saratoga, and while the inner turf is favorable to front runners at Saratoga, I would say the one at Monmouth is even a little bit more favorable with the short stretch. So I expect a little bit of improvement for this horse. I don't think he's just throwing this horse in here for a race. Manny Franco, that's fine. He should get the usual stalking trip he usually gets. Probably going to be a little bit wide. That's one concern. Maybe he could try to slip in at some point. That's not typically his style, but hopefully he gets a break or two. It's Chad at 8-1. I can't say no in this kind of situation. So I'll be 1, 3, 10 in here, mainly trying to get the 3 and 10 on top.
And I'm going to go on top with the 3 in here, Finest Works, for a lot of the reasons that Andrew mentioned. 2 really good races to start off the year. Didn't end off 2021 in the greatest form, 5th in an allowance, optional claimer at Parks, but 2 strong efforts this year. Price is right at this point. Obviously, you can't go wrong with any of the shorter horses in here, but I'm going to take the chance with Finest Work here because I did go a little bit favorite heavy earlier on in the card, and obviously later on with the 2 stakes races, got to go very short. So got to try to make some money on this card, so we're going to have a little bit of fun with this race.
Yep, so I've got Franco on the outside, who might lose ground, and I got Rosario on this other horse who's probably going to be further behind and stuck in traffic. Ugh. Now I'm starting to rethink this. Just kidding. Just kidding. I have to do it anyway. Race number 7 is simply a one-horse bet for me. Just a little bit of something 5.5 on the turf. Number 5, Mr. Chairman. This is what happens. I keep getting stuck betting Joel Rosario because he rides for Clement. Well, too bad for me. Has to be done. One more thing about this horse. This horse lost to Seaver. Seaver, named after, of course, Tom Terrific, Tom Seaver of the New York Mets. He ran the other day, the last race on Haskell Day, and ran a huge race going 2 turns at Saratoga. Ran absolutely ginormous and almost won. And if he did win, it would have been a lot more money for me. Unfortunately, he finished second, so I just got the short way exacta, losing to your favorite trainer, Jack and Mike Maker. But we will take Mr. Chairman here off that one race. I had the exacta in this race, too, because I played Seaver, just pretty much off the name and the fact that it's Tim Hills with Mr. Chairman. Of course, he was a firster for Clement in this case. So I got that exacta. That paid a nice $150. So we'll try and key in around Mr. Chairman again, but this time he actually has to win.
And I'm going to go to my old friend because he hits the board every single time, and that's Feathers Road. The last couple times we have done stuff, or I've done stuff with Andrew, I have picked Feathers Road, and I'm going to run it back a third time with him because he hits the board almost every single time. He's been on the board he's been in the money 7 of 10 times, and then on the board an 8th time. That was a 4th in a maiden race at Aqueduct back in February. He doesn't ever win anything, but I don't necessarily have a problem with horses that run 2nd or 3rd in races. And if I can get a halfway decent price on him, I can throw a show wager on him and know that I have a pretty good chance of hitting the race. I also have watched the race with Linda Rice the past couple of times, and maybe my negative energy has been holding back the horse. And as a result of me not being there, maybe he finally does break through, because I won't be watching this race with Linda Rice this time. And he did also get interfered with at Belmont last time. And there was a disqualification. I think he finished 4th in there, but he did get put up for 3rd in there. And, maybe that interference certainly did affect him to a certain point in the race, and could have gotten up for 2nd. Maybe probably not won the race, because Frank's Art was going to win that race, but gets up for 2nd there if that doesn't happen to him. So we're going to run it back and try to see if he can this time be the charm for him.
Yeah, big feather in Feathers Road in his cap is that he got to see Frank Sart his big muscular butt last time. So that's a very good feather in Feathers Road's cap. I was looking at the picture I took of that horse, Jack. Man, he's got muscles on his muscles. I think he could really turn into something good. The 8th race is the Jackie's Warrior Alfred G. Vanderbilt Handicap. Sorry, not to take anything away from the Vanderbilts and all the money and power that they had, but yeah, this is Jackie's Warrior. This is a absolutely terrible field in my opinion, and he should roll over these horses in every single way.
Oh yeah, no, this is not a real quality group of horses. Jackie's Warrior, if he wins this race, there's something serious, or if he doesn't win this race, there's something seriously wrong with him. This should be, as I like to say, a procession. Move on, just watch the race. Jackie's Warrior is going to be 1 to 9. Take your, if you're like me, take your 5 cents and move on.
Yep, and of course this horse ran 2 very nice races at Saratoga last year, so we know he likes the track. Race number 9, I guess, even though it's not a grade 1, is sort of the feature of the card, and of course it's going to be in the title of this video, and that is the Jim Dandy Stakes. You can scratch number 1, Western River, which means that this is now a field of 4, and it should be a field of much more, but people are wanting to run in the more minor version of this on Friday, the Curlin Stakes, and we are left with just 4 horses. Thank God there are at least 4 good horses. You've got Epicenter, who was 2nd in the Derby. You've got Tawny Port, who won the Ohio Derby. You've got Early Voting, who won the Preakness. And you've got Zandon, who won the Bluegrass and finished 3rd right behind Epicenter in the Derby. So you've got 4 of the best 3-year-olds that are out there at the moment, especially with the way Jack Christopher, I'm not going to say Jack Christopher's bad, because I just don't think he wants to go 2 turns. But as far as 2-turn 3-year-olds, you probably have the best ones here, considering that Mo Donegal is out for the year. He was probably the candidate, at least in my opinion, to be that. But at least you got a lot of good ones here. I'd say you have at least 3 of them in Epicenter and the 2 Chad horses.
I would definitely agree with you. I think rather highly of Tawny Port, and actually that's good to know that Western River's not in this race. He was going to run 5th in there, but it's very difficult to separate especially the top 3 in here: early voting, Zandon, and Epicenter. I'll let you get into what you're going to do in this race, Andrew. I will talk about what I'm going to do following you, but I think that I will say credit to Aragona. I think the morning line is very indicative of how this race is going to be played in there. Not a whole lot of separation. This is also just going to be a watch race. Maybe you throw your win bet on whoever you're going with in here, but probably, at least from my perspective, I won't be playing much, if anything, on this race. Just more so watching it and trying to see how this race sets up for the Travers.
Yeah, well, most certainly. In the 7th race, I took a 4-to-1 shot. In the 8th race, I took a 1-to-5 shot, so I'm definitely not going to be playing doubles or pick threes into this race. But I might play doubles out of it into the 10th, into the 3 horses I like in there, which I'll tell you guys about when we get there. But I think this is Chad Brown's race. I want Zandon. And that might be surprising to you out there, considering early voting has the speed, has handled a mile and 3/16, which is a 16th further than this race, and Epicenter ran 2nd in the freaking Kentucky Derby. Well, here's the reason I like Zandon. He's out in the clear. He's not going to have any problems, you would think, that typically arise in a small field like this when it comes down to jockeys and boxing each other in tight quarters, all being scrunched up together, because I have a feeling this pack is going to be extremely tight in here, despite the fact that you have early voting there. I don't know how aggressive Jose Ortiz is going to be, especially after the horse chose to rate in the Preakness. Who goes between Epicenter and early voting will be very interesting to see. But I think the way the track has been playing at Saratoga, especially in these 1.125 races, it's very tiring to the horses that are out there, and I think it will favor someone coming from off the pace. And Zandon, in this race, I do not expect him to be that far off, but he will be either 3rd or 4th in here, you'd think, and I expect him to come running late with those giant strides, much like he did in his maiden race. The Derby was concerning because he hung. He hung big time. He should have won that race, most likely. He should have at least passed Epicenter, and Epicenter held him off. So that's a little bit concerning to me, but I think that the way things are going right now, this is the chance for you to get Zandon, and maybe you get 5-2, because people are going to get suckered in with the Preakness with early voting. People are going to get suckered in with a horse who ran 2nd in the Derby in Epicenter and beat Zandon. So if you're a win bet kind of person who has $50 or $100 to bet just to win on one horse, I would take, and not that I'm doing that because I have the money, but I don't want to do it. If I wanted to do it, I would do it with Zandon, and I'm picking the race 5-4. I'm going to try to get Epicenter out of it, just from a pick standpoint, because I'm not playing this exact. That makes no sense to do it. So, in essence, I'm picking the race 5-4-2-3. That's how I think it's going to run. I'm a little surprised Epicenter didn't get a tune-up since the Preakness, because I feel like the ass man tends to run his horses a little more. Chad, I know, is patient. Chad has no problem taking time off, and I don't think that's going to affect either of these horses. I'm a little surprised I haven't seen one start out of Epicenter, but I guess it's not a big deal.
Yeah, Center could have run in the Belmont. I made that abundantly clear. Obviously, he didn't. The reason that I didn't pick Epicenter, now I did a preview for this race on Racing Rundown, so if you're curious to hear more of what I have to say, you can definitely check that out. I hate to do this, but I didn't pick Epicenter just because I don't want to trust Rosario to not screw this race up, because he screwed the Preakness up heavily, and as a result of that, early voting was able to win the Preakness because of that. I would really like for Jose, and I know the track hasn't been playing towards this, so I'm not sure that it's going to happen, but I would love Jose to go out there and try to get separation on this field, because it either forces Epicenter to commit and try to keep closer to make sure that early voting doesn't get too far away, or it makes Rosario sit back further and gives him more of a chance to screw something up in this race. And I like early voting a lot exiting the Preakness. I don't necessarily like him for the Travers. I really like him for this race. And he is going to be, I think, the controlling speed in this race. I wouldn't be surprised if they try to get Epicenter back, find the middle ground between where they've had him in the Kentucky Derby and back where the Kentucky Derby and Preakness, and then where they had him on the earlier part of the Kentucky Derby trail in his first 3 prep races at the fairgrounds, which he was a pure front runner in those races. And so I think they're going to try to thread the needle with that, go the middle ground here. They'll be able to do that because you're not going to get a whole lot of speed from Tawny Port and Zandon there. So he'll probably sit second, depending on how close, it remains to be seen how close he'll be. Like I said, I'd like to see early voting go out there and try to get separation from this field. Don't think he's going to do that, but I think it is something that if he were to do that, even though the track hasn't necessarily been playing to that, could be beneficial for him. I like him on top, like I said, because I think he will get the tactics advantage, and I don't want to trust Rosario to not screw something up in this race. Very worried about Zandon because I think 1 1/8 is his perfect distance. He has had 2 really good races at 1 1/8, the Remsen and the Bluegrass. I don't think the Risen Star was a good effort for him, but he does have 2 good efforts at 1 1/8, so I know he can do that. Very nervous about him, but I'm going to roll with the tactics, and I'm going to roll with early voting in this spot.
So we're both on Chad, and you can bet I'm on Chad in the 10th race as well. 10th race, 1 1/16 on the Mellon turf course this time, so wider turns. I'm going to go with orchestration for Chad Brown for obvious reasons. This horse is going to be far back and try to make a run. That is definitely easier to do on the Mellon turf course. I also want to use 2 horses that are going to be further towards the outside. Now, he should get a nice covered up trip. Hopefully, Ortiz doesn't get into that much trouble. I also want to use the 1, who's Bay Street Money, who the last 2 times at mid-price odds has cost me a total of about $250 by not winning. Just can't seem to win. Runs a good race every time. The one race where he did win, which is April 9th at Aqueduct, he screwed me out of money that day. So now he screwed me out of money by winning. He screwed me out of money by running in the money. So this time I'm just going to have him in my box. So hopefully it's covered that way. If the price is good enough, I could also put a little bit on him to win if the race sets up that way. But I'm really not looking at him as a win candidate. And then, of course, the other horse I'm going to use, if you've looked at the race, is the 12 for Todd Pletcher. This horse's first race was impressive at 5-1. Didn't really, considering how much the horse won by on the turf, that's a pretty impressive first race for a 5-1 first-time starter. So I'm going to use that horse as well. Going to box 1, 3, and 12 with main focus on the 3 in the 10th race.
And I'm going to go back to Mike Maker. Last couple of races are Mike Maker for me on this card. And that the Maker that I'm going with in this race is the 7, or program number 7, but post number 6, Exalt, coming out of a starter allowance victory at Churchill. This horse has finished in the money 7 of 12 times, and then you look further down in the running lines. He has been been on the board, so another 4 times. So this horse hits the board in races. He's only missed the board once. And he did earlier on back in 2021. He did back in 2020 he did break through. I am breaking one of my major rules and don't take horses off of significant layoffs. But I'm gonna play the Maker price angle in this spot just to see if I can get something in here. Again, as you saw, we're not going to be making a whole lot of money earlier on this card. So let's have some fun later on in this card. Throw stuff to the wind, do stuff that I normally don't do. Take Exalt in this spot.
And if you like the 2 Maker horses, you're going to get 2 jockeys that are aware that speed kills in Gaffleone and Saez, as has been evidenced over the first 10 days of the the meet. So if you like Maker, you've got two really good riders for you in this race. The last race is also a turf race. Very nice. I love the grass racing. Continuing here. Now this is just a claiming race. This is a race where I'm not going to be into for that much. Just going to use a little bit of the 5 Barley one for Jose Camejo. I like what he's been doing this year, this guy. I'm going to use him right off that win at Belmont where he was stalking a pretty slow pace and got up over some pretty nice horses in there. And now actually gets an easier race. Maybe it's a little concerning that he's kind of dropping down here. But it's not like these claiming races at Saratoga are really that easy.
And one final race for me with Maker, the morning line favorite in this race, Healing at 5-2. He's getting a class break in here, obviously, and then he's cutting back from a mile and a 16th race to a mile. So cutback angle plus class break angle. We'll see what happens with him in this spot. He'll probably get played, but I'm willing to swallow that in this spot.
And that's it, everybody. Those were the 11 races on Saturday, July 30th, Jim Dandy Day at Saratoga Racecourse. Looks like there's some opportunities here. I'm, of course, keying on races 2, 6, and 10. We'll see how it turns out. We'll see how the Jim Dandy turns out. We'll see if the House of Upsets can pour one over on Jackie's Warrior. I doubt it, but all will be found out in time. Of course, One Turn Route, Episode 8. NYRA is tarnishing the legacy of beautiful Belmont Park. Out Monday morning. Please keep an eye out for that. I'm going to try and not drag it out too long. Try and keep it to about 20 minutes. Because the facts are really only require that much in the discussion. But I could probably go on for it about 2 hours. Just keeping on thinking about different shit. So I'll try to keep it short. No promises. Jack, anything else?
Yeah, I did want to talk about one final race, and that is if we're going to look to Sunday at Saratoga, another Saratoga tradition. They spaced out the stakes calendar at Saratoga a little bit more, which was interesting. So this race would have been on Saturday last year, but we get it on Sunday now this year. But I'm going to have to reference the Saratoga tradition. Every year you get cross-border at Saratoga in races, going back to all the way to 2019 when he won a couple allowance races. And then subsequently the past 2 years, he won the Lou Bash and the Bowling Green in 2020. And then he won the Bowling Green last year at pretty good prices in both of those spots. Got to go back to cross-border in this race. Got to go back to the Saratoga tradition of cross-border in the Bowling Green, taking him on top in this spot because you probably are going to get a pretty decent price on him. He loves Saratoga. He's lost his first 3 races coming in here, so he's going to be overlooked. You've got 2 Chad horses in here and Grade 1 winner Highland Chief. I don't think that they're that much better than him, so we're gonna play the Saratoga tradition cross border and hope that he gets Saratoga stakes wins at Saratoga in 3 straight years and 4 straight years of victories in races at Saratoga.
Okay, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to use him in that race because there's a few others I want to use in here. I'd probably have to use both Chads and then Highland Chief, but I absolutely understand the cross-border angle. It makes a lot of sense, and I'd say you're going to get a price, aren't you? You should get at least a decent price on him. This horse hasn't run particularly well this year, but he sure loves Saratoga. Horses for courses. It's a real thing, people. Don't forget about that. So we'll see if Cross Border can resurrect his Saratoga form. With that said, everyone, thank you for watching. We'll see you on Monday for One Turn Route, and then later on in August for the Travers Day preview. Otherwise, going to keep it very light here on the YouTube channel. Pay your bills first, and may the odds be ever in your favor.